Thank you all for being here. And before we get started, I want to thank Captain Ron and Gordon for inviting me to speak at this year's Contact in the Desert. It is my first one, and I am really impressed. I think I've spoken at several hundred conferences over the last 40-odd years, and often we either forget or take for granted that the great majority of conferences run on volunteer power. Without volunteers, it would just be too difficult or expensive to produce it. We've all seen this volunteer team in action. They are what we used to call in the human potential movement on purpose. And everyone that I've interfaced with in those positions has been absolutely professional and first rate. Let's acknowledge them with the understanding that we're a small group out of this huge crowd that's come here for these 4 days, and that they are right now all over this complex doing what they do so well. Can we have a big round of applause for them? The pictures you're about to see are quite shocking in some ways, and in others, kind of expected in the big picture of other intelligences, visitations, and none of this is original work. I take credit for no pioneering aspect here. For more than 50 years, that NASA has been sending satellites and other objects into space. Not long after Sputnik, really, they have been equipped with the finest optical equipment manufactured here. The Hasselblad camera technology is still top rate, right up there, Leica, Nikon. But over the decades, NASA has built databases of hundreds of thousands of photos. We don't know how many. And they began with photos taken several hundred miles up, circling the moon, and of course, since then, out into space, Mars, of course, and then we started to put rovers on Mars. And the images you're going to see range from those taken several hundred miles up to as close as I am to you, nose to nose on the surface of Mars. I pose to you before we start that this material is important, and people in leadership positions moving forward in this rather exciting time in advancement of UFO studies with leading scientists, well-respected academics, politicians who a scant half dozen, 10 years ago would have been risking their reputations, their careers, and now are openly at work advocating for the lifting of the secrecy. At the same time, we are all very sophisticated viewers. We see things in high def, and we know we can never trust a single photographic image. Those days are gone. Anything can be faked perfectly. And bearing that in mind, there is an understandable kind of skepticism about this material, especially ones that don't have full provenance, as I would say. That means mission name, mission number, date photograph, longitude, latitude, etc. The images that are not so accredited that you're going to see are overall ones that I feel are authentic, and including ones that you can see for comparison. So how do we, the people, take this information and instill in our leadership and folks in the UFO research community who have clout, that this is material you can come forward with and know, to paraphrase the late great Stanton T. Friedman, the question is not, are the images that you are about to see representative of ancient cultures, visitations, organized activity on the moon and Mars? The question is one of them? And the overwhelming answer to that is, oh yes. This is something every one of us has seen at one time or another repeatedly in our lives. It's, well, unless I read it wrong, it's the foundation of a simple rectangular structure of the past. Anybody have any issues with that assumption? The problem is that it's on the moon. A bit more subtle, and I'm willing to concede any aspect that, because we'd all, on a certain level, like this to be true, that I have to be particularly skeptical and discriminating in the images. Once again, my deduction based on logic, common sense, and the fact that this is an authentic image, it's, once again, the remains of the foundation of a rectangular structure, except that it's on Mars. Natural formation or not? I don't know, but it's thought-provoking, and it's on Mars. The arrows point to these two things, which do read as a possible skull. Then again, two dark circles, equidistant, about the same size, placed like that. Could that happen in nature, in a rock form? Not out of the question, but there is cause to feel this might be an artifact, or what it appears to be. The same for the image on the far left, blue arrow. Again, leaning over backwards in an attempt to be completely fair and objective. Could this be a rock formation? Sure, it could happen. It's just one of those ones that brings us to a condition that we have to recognize in ourselves and others. It has a technical term. It's called pareidolia, which is the tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. We've all been there. Classic profile of something relatively identifiable and in rock form. I actually, to veer off from the natural world, we have wonderful opportunities to experience pareidolia in the human manufactured world. One of the cutest. Isn't it interesting how we immediately personify, enjoy, and catch ourselves, with a little good humor about that fact. Now, this is another very fine example, I think. That's about as good as they get. And no photoshopping necessary. In the randomness of nature, we occasionally see extraordinarily representational images that, resonate the way they do with us. The next one, I had the pleasure as a boy on a family vacation in New Hampshire to see The Old Man in the Mountain. I don't remember how many years it's been, but that rock face collapsed. And much to the depression of New Hampshire residents. Clouds, oh boy. The more I worked on this project, the more I started to stare at clouds. And the more I thought, oh my God, I've got to run and get my phone because this looked just like a whatever. Here's what I'm sort of proud of, but it looked a lot more like a poodle 15 seconds before.
Look at that. Oh.
Wood grain.
Wow.
And thank you, Google Earth. Once again, that's a tree stump aerial shot. This one, I'm quite convinced is photoshopped. Not this one, the next one. And I really hope it's authentic. But I'm willing to concede that it's not. And we talk about peaceful vegetarians, well. And now allow me one piece of intentional humor. So, the fact is that the study of some of these anomalies on the moon first and then on the moon and Mars goes back more than 50 years. The first references in books that I explored were from the late 50s. George Leonard was a pioneer in this study, and his book, Somebody Else's on the Moon, long out of print, but laborious drawings. I forget the backstory of why he wasn't allowed to use the imagery, and in some cases, as we progress in published images, they're first, second, third generation copies of photos. David Childress, Extraterrestrial Archaeology, some fascinating images there as well. Moon Anomalies. This is a very well-researched book that published in the 60s or 70s that was another real pioneer in pointing out these problematic images. This one actually was published in the 50s and has a small discussion on such visual aspects on the moon, and very scholarly, and it's more a footnote than a focus. Then in the early 90s, Richard Hoagland became a presence in the scene with extraordinary interpretations of an area on Mars, which he termed Cydonia, the great face on Mars that was so captivated many of our imaginations and ideas, especially given the fact that in terms of scale, and the term we'd use here is an earthwork, an intentional construction, on the surface, either for decorative or whatever purposes. If this is a face, as opposed to what we were later told, but just a momentary catching of light, but really not representational of what really is there, as I recall, it's something like 5 miles long, 2 miles wide, 1.5 miles high. That's pretty highly intentioned, even if I'm off somewhat. Again, we're seeing the photos. These are from the 70s, these photos. But what we seem to be seeing is representational and very face-like. Again, bearing in mind Pareidolia, and that with few exceptions, you know in your heart you want this to be real. Oop. Okay, so NASA reacted to the publication of Richard's book, his first book, by saying, folks, this is what's really there. And it was just a play of light. We're sorry for all of you believers and, folks with a mystical longing for Martians and all that, but nothing to see here, move along. I remember thinking to myself at the time, gosh, I really wanted that to be real, but Not that I'm a martinet or necessarily a believer in what NASA tells me is true, but I accepted it. I've had cause to question it more recently. And I think this image is the one that's been played with. The Rover technology, for me, just fills me with wonder like a kid. But the internet, as far as I'm concerned, is the mind of God. It proves to me that aliens are real, that other intelligence are real, that how could that have happened? I don't know about you guys, every once in a while I'll just think of some absolutely insanely arcane question and type it in and bang, there's the answer. You know, what was Mozart's second sister's favorite song? It's just nutty. But how, you know, say a lot of programmers working for years, and I guess it's true. I'm, again, thinking out loud here, and it's not a question I need answered, but when the rover technology began, let's think for a moment. You've got a pretty big planet. You're landing craft over the years in way different locations. What are the odds, thinking in a conventional way, of them encountering problematic images? You know, for me, it's like 1 in a zillion or something. Well, it's really not that way. Meet an object on Mars. And these, we can make some assumptions about scale. It's probably not huge at all. It's something that our rover is looking right at, stuck in the sand or what have you. Absolutely authentic image on Mars. My first thought was kind of a big stack of coins that's stuck in the sand, and what the hell? Wait a minute. Is there any way with my non-scientific mind that I can interpret this as a natural formation? I lost that one. Anybody ever see anything like this on Earth? A form we're all familiar with, going back millennia.
Yeah, why are they all so blurry?
Say again?
Why are they so blurry? Is that intentional, or is that just
Well,
about
no,
the
these are photographs being transmitted tens of millions of miles, and I guess there's a certain aspect of sharpness lost in the technology. I'm the wrong person to ask. A natural formation? Sure, maybe, I don't know, or a Christmas ornament. Yep. And this is intriguing and something we've all seen. It looks like a little piece of, you know, plastic drop cloth, and in fact, when we look at it closer, that's what it seems to be. Here, though, I can easily say to myself, perhaps, you know, it's something off of the the Mars module, something, a bit of flotsam and jetsam from our technology that, you know, got ripped up in the, who the hell knows. But it's not natural. And again, we know what we're looking at too well to make believe it's, you know, something else. Now, images like this, once again, that what looks like a piece of glass, is there a natural explanation for that? I'll bet there is somewhere. But I'm damned if I know what it is. Rectangles, of course, nature's filled with them, especially in the crystalline world. But we're not growing crystals on the surface of Mars. Now we go into a different level of, wait a minute, stuff. My first thought was, right, dumpster on Mars, why not? But one thing is for sure, this doesn't belong there in terms of what we thought we knew. One of the great things about all of this imagery is that occasionally when you're working on the surface photographically, you happen to take a picture that shows something above the surface. And here we have not just questionable imagery far right, but a definite what's-its. It's a definite something moving along above the surface of the planet. Same here. They ain't ours, whatever is photographed in the air there. Again, I wonder, it looks, I don't know, like an old machine part or something, that seeming portal type shape in the object on the right. Could that be natural? I guess it's possible. Now, what we're looking at here on the left side, is that shadow or is that an opening? And how the heck did that formation get there to start with? Once again, we enter another level of intrigue in terms of interpretation. From here, that looks just like a shape, but let's close in a bit. I've seen things like this in the Orkney Islands, in Wiltshire, England, in Scotland. The term, I believe, is a cairn. It could be a marker for an important thing that happened there. It could be a burial site. You know, on Earth, if you're in the wilderness and you have a body to inter, you want to make sure that the animals don't get to it. And this goes back thousands of years. Humans know this. You pile rocks on it, and it's a marker, but a protector. And how close is this to, things on Earth? Well, damn close. Once again, what is that thing in the distance? A car stuck in the sand. Some natural thing, I can't imagine how it happened. It's anomalous, and it doesn't belong there. What are we looking at here? We'll come back to this. But it's something sitting on a ridge. Okay, now we're going to take a look at some natural features of Mars as well as what I feel are manufactured, just to give a sense of comparison. Okay, the image I'm about to show you is from David Childress's book. David, of course, a very well-known individual in the work, I have a lot of admiration for. And he was able to get either a copy of a copy. But I remember looking at this, and my first thought was, major airport terminal. But that's big, and that didn't happen naturally, and it's on Mars. And we go into Richard Hoagland's first book, once again. The Cydonia region is fascinating, and the face is only one of a number of features that is problematic. Craters don't form with a little, nice little area to settle in on the ridge. Are those forms natural? Possibly. Or not. The D&M pyramid is not natural. And for me, it's almost identical to Neolithic, even to biblical area fortifications. Isn't this great? Completely natural part of the surface of Mars. And not so much. Now, this is one of those areas, if somebody who is knowledgeable, can say, this is the way, the material on the surface of Mars broke down over the last, 2.5 million years, and it forms this kind of shape going back to when we had water. Well, all right, but I don't think so. Inca City, of course, is just a name that's given to it. This, even more problematic, I think. And once again, we have the longitude, the latitude, the mission, the time, the day. Now, this intrigued me. It was presented as showing that there was quarrying being done on the surface of Mars. And if there was a civilization there and working with rock, well, they'd probably quarry much in the manner that we do. And the problem was that it was a closed, tight photo, but in fact, you know, I think we can all get, all right, I get it, but in reality, it's just part of a natural way that this part of Mars evolved. Right. Now, this one intrigued me. There was a great deal of dialogue between the researchers. It's a processing plant, it's a this or that. I paid little attention to their wording, but as an urbanite, New York City's my home, my hometown, and I've traveled enough that I've seen structures built into mountainsides. This really intrigued me. Wow. And again, if you're having trouble grabbing the image, just soften your gaze slightly. You'll see it. This is a series of buildings, as far as I'm concerned. And when we close in on it, we see there's some definite rectangular spaces. And again, also, just as an aside, when you see a pixelated face and you squint, it's shocking how much more readable it is. So, what the hell? We've all been told, yes, oh my gosh, there's water on Mars, but it's all, you know, permafrost. It's sitting on the surface as far as some of it goes. There is no other way to read the image in the upper right as far as I'm concerned, other than what it seems to be. Water in a unnaturally shaped recess. Now close in here. These interpretations are from the original researchers, of course. That is a freestanding something. Could it happen in nature? I can't say no. This, on the other hand, looks structural. And if we were in an absolutely dark room where you were looking at an original image of this, the anomalies would jump out more, but I think you get the sense. Whew. This is an example of an image not breaking down fractally in a camera. What we're seeing is what's there. And it looks like a lot of contractors have been very busy for a long time, or were 5,000, 5 million, or 50 million years ago. This, once again, for me, is one of the bolder and more readable images of intentional structures. Now, let me go back once again. With, you know, the lead one on the rise on the left, and then seemingly other structures in a recess below it, valley-like. This image was documented by a researcher 50 years ago. And that doesn't happen in nature. Okay, tracking. Now, if there was life activity and, not necessarily moving above the surface, but on the surface, this is, for any skeptic or debunker, a big effing problem. Because we know the exact location, we know the mission, we know the time, and we know the longitude and latitude. And it is what appears to be. This is on Earth. I believe in Iraq. I don't have my notes with me, but is it a tracking, a transit way, or is it kind of a symbolic procession way, like we see in Neolithic activity of like this in the Outer Hebrides, the Orkneys, Wiltshire, and other areas of the world? I don't know. Okay, once again, we have water. And as far as I'm concerned, photographically, in no uncertain terms. And as a photograph, there's something really kind of exciting about some of these pictures. They confirm what we know, that we're not alone.
Peter, what are the yellow squares?
What yellow
The yellow squares, what are they indicating?
I'm not sure. But come on. And again, we have been assured that, yes, there is water on Mars, but of course it's not pooled on the surface. That's, impossible, except that there it is. So, NASA has made it very clear that this is not an opening. It's a play of light. It's a natural formation. It happens in different areas. And again, nothing to see here, folks. Move along. Except that it happens in a number of places. And we read them just like you're reading them right now. I want you to go into your most skeptical, most critical self. And well, yeah, maybe, of course, these true believers and these New Age folks and, sci-fi guys, they love this shit. And, they want to read that as an opening into Mars. But, okay, we're going to zone in on an area here, and I want to do it in stages because what we see is very simple, but there is no way that this could have happened in nature. And moving closer, what I'm seeing is a cross on top of what seems to be a structure, possibly. Now, let's bear in mind that a cross, while on Earth, there's a very specific association, theologically or structurally. It's not out of the question that crosses in other times and other places have nothing to do with Christianity or crucifixion. But that's a cross. And it is sitting on what seems to be a surface. Also, if we let our eyes relax and cover the territory, we see some organization to certain parts of this. which for me I interpret them as intentional structures.
You're right.
You see to the left and just slightly below the cross, a triangular area, lower left, that suggests the edge of a structure that the cross is sitting on. And in pure common sense terms, that's acceptable. That makes sense. Okay, we had a look at this anomaly earlier on from a greater distance. And this is the one that breaks the bank for me. Even, I have a mantra around things like this of every once in a while somebody wins a $100 million lottery. Every once in a while somebody wins a $100 million lottery. Nature can organize itself in ways that are astonishing and representational, but the more detailed, the more sensible, the more identical to what we think we might be looking at, the more the odds are pushed in favor of it being something that doesn't belong there in our minds. One more distant shot. And let's go close. Sorry, folks, for me, that is what it appears to be. We call them sculptures on Earth. It's representational of a humanoid form. And it's sitting on that ridge 40 million miles away on Mars.
What's the scale on that, Jim?
This is Phobos. And the twin moons of Saturn are named Phobos and Deimos, fear and terror. Stanley Kubrick gave us a visionary film many years ago, 2001, and the plot revolves around an obelisk on Earth in cave times that certainly didn't belong there, and that idea of a mark left by advanced civilization. On Phobos, we have an obelisk. This is a rectangular structure that looks to us like the foundation of a building. It's on the moon. This is a rectangular structure that we've seen all our lives in different situations. The remains of a simple rectangular structure, and it's on Mars. Thank you for your time and attention.
What are these guys do or tell?